Discover the shocking truth behind the Apostle Paul's epic transformation at midnight. The moon hung heavy and full over the ancient city of Damascus, casting ghostly shadows through the streets. It was a night like no other, and in that stillness, something electrifying stirred in the air, waiting to erupt. As the clock struck midnight, a silence thicker than fog wrapped the atmosphere, and in this eerie lull, two worlds were about to collide. The moonlight shone down on a man whose life was about to take a turn that would shake the very foundation of belief itself. Saul of Tarsus, a fierce persecutor of Christians, now on a path that would change everything. Rumors whispered through the alleyways about a light that had blinded men blind and brought down kings. Saul felt its presence tonight. His stomach churned in anxious knots, a tightness in his chest as he rode through the dark streets, fueled by rage and determination. Little did he know, fate had a different plan brewing for him. Suddenly, a blinding light burst from the heavens, enveloping him, leaving him gasping for breath, his heart racing with fear. Every inch of him screamed danger, yet an unexplainable calm washed over him. Was this a vision? A trick of the mind? All around him, the night erupted in chaos. His companions staggered, eyes wide with terror, unable to comprehend what their leader was witnessing. Whispers turned into shouts, panic rising like the tide as they struggled to understand the bewildering sight that had overtaken their journey. Could this be the wrath of the God they had dismissed? Paralyzed by awe, Saul strained to understand a voice echoing through the tumult, calling his name, "Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?" There was no escape. Each word struck him like a hammer to his soul. Could it be? Was this the very being he had been condemning? Who was he talking to? The voice stirred an urgency within him, a primal fear mixed with a strange sense of hope. As he lay trembling in the dust, vision lost in that blinding light, a new reality seemed to dawn, one that he could never have imagined. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The light faded, leaving only darkness and silence. But that stillness was heavy with possibility. Questions pulsated in Saul's mind as his heart raced in a frantic rhythm. What just happened? Would he rise from this moment transformed, or would he forever be shackled by the very thing he pursued? The line between salvation and condemnation blurred in the depths of that darkness, leaving a question that loomed larger than any lesson he had learned. What did this encounter mean for him, for them all? The stillness clung to the air, thick and suffocating. Saul felt every heartbeat echoing in his ears, each thump a reminder of the fear and uncertainty that lay ahead. He was lost in that profound silence, no longer the bold hunter of believers, but a man caught in the web of an unnameable force. His companions stood frozen, their faces pale and eyes vacant, mirroring the confusion that churned inside him. Suddenly, his mind raced to reconnect the fragments of his past. Was this truly a divine confrontation? He had always dismissed tales of miracles as superstition, fabrications to ensnare the weak. Yet here he lay under the eerie moonlight, grappling with the reality that he had been wrong all along. The ground felt unsteady beneath him, shifting like his beliefs. "Who are you, Lord?" he finally managed to croak, his voice trembling as it broke the still air. "I am Jesus," the voice reverberated, shaking him to the core, pulling him from the brink of comprehension into a chasm of revelation. Stunned, Saul felt the weight of the moment crash down on him. The name he had hunted with fervor now echoed with unimaginable power, resonating deep within him. It was as if every heartbeat brought forth images of men and women he had persecuted, each face a stark reminder of his past transgressions. A lump formed in his throat, combining anger, regret, and a burgeoning sense of purpose. He gasped for breath, feeling the truth seep into his very bones. "Why are you persecuting me?" The question hung in the air, painful and accusing. Saul clenched his fists, the emotions swirling within him threatening to boil over. The shame washed over him like ice-cold water, shocking him into a painful clarity. What would it mean to turn from the path he'd walked for so long? Was it even possible? A shudder rippled through his body, a mix of anger at himself and a fierce struggle against the old Saul, the Pharisee, who thrived on tradition and the law. The new Saul was being born, one who would challenge everything he believed. Staggering to his feet, blinded by the remnants of light still dancing behind his eyelids, he tried to regain his composure. But his companions were dragging him back to reality. They had shifted from fearful witnesses to panicked disciples now unsure who to follow. One of them, a fierce young man named John, yelled out, "What should we do? We must return to Jerusalem. Tell the others." But the urgency in John's voice only propelled Saul further into confusion. He wasn't a hunter anymore, he was hunted by a truth far greater than any doctrine he had ever known. The inner battle raged, and he felt the walls of his mind closing in. Screams of doubt echoed around him. What if I'm destined to carry this message? He thought. What if I am meant to lead this movement? The chaos erupted as the rustle of garments and murmurs filled the air. His companions tugged at him, torn between urgency and fear. It was more than just a change of road ahead, it was a new existence, unfathomable and exhilarating. Confusion flashed through his eyes, but beneath it all lay the spark of an awakening, a spark that would resist being snuffed out. As they hurried away, the moon began to wane, shadows dancing more fiercely. Saul couldn't shake the feeling that with his transformation, he invited enemies, and perhaps, he would become an anomaly, a messenger among adversaries. But deep down, he couldn't help but wonder, how much had he truly sacrificed for this newfound path? The night seemed darker now, as whispers of destiny stirred like leaves caught in a gale. How was he supposed to embrace such a radical shift? What awaited him in Jerusalem, where harrowing doubts loomed larger than ever? The answers danced just beyond his grasp, beckoning him into an uncertain future. Could he truly become a voice for those he once condemned? The answer hung like a thread, ready to unravel in the next breath he took. The road ahead twisted like a serpent, cloaked in shadows. Each step Saul took felt heavier, laden with the weight of his past. The moonlight struggled against a blanket of clouds that rolled in, a harbinger of the storm brewing within him. John and the others pressed forward, their panic palpable. "Saul! We have to hurry." John's voice broke through, urgent yet laced with fear. He glanced back, eyes searching for guidance, but Saul was lost in a fog of his own doubt. The faces of the believers he had persecuted flashed in his mind, a haunting parade of guilt. "Stop!" Saul suddenly shouted, startling everyone. The group halted, confusion etched on their faces. "We need to think. What if I'm known for the wrong reasons now? What will they say about me? How could I face them after everything I've done?" Silence stretched around them, the kind of silence that vibrated with unspoken fears. The air was electric, charged with the weight of his admission. Each breath felt sharp, puncturing the stillness, and Saul could hear the distant howl of the wind, a reminder of the chaos waiting just outside their little bubble of existence. "What has changed, Saul?" asked a hesitant voice from the crowd. It was Miriam, her eyes wide with a mix of curiosity and concern. "You've seen the truth. You know what you must do. But do I truly know? This truth, it's a burden." Saul's voice quivered, betraying the storm raging within him. "Can a man like me become a vessel of hope? What if they see me as I was, not as I am?" As he spoke, a shadow flickered at the edge of the clearing. Saul's heart raced. "Did you see that?" he whispered urgently. His companions peered into the darkness, the atmosphere thickened with an ominous presence, a flicker of movement that set their instincts on high alert. "Maybe it's a trick of the light," John suggested, but his voice held a tremor of doubt. No. Saul took a cautious step forward, the twilight swallowing him momentarily. He strained his ears, a sudden chill creeping down his spine. "We're not alone." The brush crackled. Eyes narrowed, the group pulled together, a spontaneous unit of resolve. Tension crackled in the air. It was on the edge of something primal, something that could either bind them together or tear them apart. They had run from Saul's past, would shadows from that past chase them down now, and then it happened. An ear-splitting roar echoed from behind the trees. A wave of fear washed over them, pulling at their resolve. Saul's heart pounded violently against his ribcage as he spun around, eyes wide, searching for the source. Before he could make sense of it, a figure emerged from the dark, shrouded in the looming shadows. The instant capture of his breath shocked him, as the silhouette bore a striking resemblance to a messenger from his nightmares. Saul, the figure hissed, its voice coated in malice. You think you can walk away? You think you can escape what you've done? Each syllable dug into Saul, as if retracting a piece of his newly building self. The climate shifted. Panic rose, constricting around his throat. The doubts he had, the fears he suppressed, this was a reckoning he didn't know if he was ready for. Run! John shouted, adrenaline fueled his thoughts like wildfire. We can't. But Saul stood frozen, a puppet ensnared by strings that tangled tighter with every moment. The wound of his past, the stain of blood, could it be washed clean? A question lingered, heavy in the air. It loomed over him, dark and foreboding. As the figure drew closer, its intentions unclear, was this an ally or an agent of his haunting past? What awaited him in this new dawn, in the perilous journey to Jerusalem? And could he truly leave behind his old self, or would it forever haunt his steps? The shadows danced and the answers strained against the surface, waiting for their moment to strike. Saul's pulse raced, pounding like a war drum in his ears. The figure stepped closer, its features sharpening as blurred memories clawed at the edges of his consciousness. He was unable to tear his gaze away. The unmistakable face of a once familiar enemy now stood before him, twisted with contempt. Do you really think you can erase the past, Saul? The voice sliced through the night air, harsh and unforgiving. You've traded one prison for another, haven't you? Saul's mind spiraled. The air felt thick, suffocating, as if the shadows themselves were alive, wrapping tighter around his heart. He opened his mouth to respond, but no words came. Instead, he was confronted by visions, flashes of anger, of rage, of the faces he had wronged, and a new sensation of vulnerability that gnawed at his insides. Saul! John shouted again, eyes darting from the figure to his friend, desperation edging his voice. You need to snap out of it. The figure continued, the mocking lilt to its words sharp. What will they say? You, a devout persecutor turned defender. They'll see you for what you are, a wolf in sheep's clothing. Don't listen to it. Miriam's voice rang out, full of strength that started to seep into Saul's bones, bittersweet like honey. You've changed. We've seen it. You've transformed. But the shadow didn't waver. Transformation? It sneered, a chilling smile stretching across its face. You think a little light can heal a lifetime of darkness? How naive. Saul felt his strength waning, doubt swirling in his mind like a storm he couldn't hope to control. What was he now? A changed man? Or merely a man trying to run from a past that would continue to define him? Saul! John's voice thundered again. We can't stay here. It's dangerous. With a sudden rush of adrenaline, Saul shook his head hard, forcing himself to focus. The moment fell quiet, and he took a deep breath. What do you want from me? He finally asked, his voice shaky but steady. The figure took another step forward, its presence radiating malevolence. What do I want? For you to realize that redemption is a cruel mirage. They won't welcome you, Saul. They will remember the prison you built around their faith. You are not free. You never will be. No. Saul shot back, surprising even himself with the force of his conviction. I won't allow my past to dictate my future. I am not that man anymore. In that moment, a flicker of hope cut through the darkness like a blade. Saul felt it, igniting a fire deep inside him, pushing back against the suffocating shadows that sought to choke out his resolve. But before he could gather his thoughts, the figure lunged forward, its hand reaching for him, fingers outstretched. An ominous whisper slithered into his ears, "You can't escape your truth." Just as Saul prepared to react, John grabbed his arm, dragging him backward. "Run!" he yelled, adrenaline electrifying his movements. The group turned and bolted, tearing through the trees, hearts racing as they fled deeper into the night, but even as he ran, a gnawing fear clutched at Saul's heart. That mocking voice echoed in his mind. Had he truly escaped? Or was this just the beginning of a far more dangerous chase? They stumbled into a clearing, everything feeling foreign and wild. Saul's breath came fast, and the storm inside him roiled. The familiar road to Jerusalem now felt like treacherous terrain, with shadows lurking at every turn. And somewhere behind them, he sensed it. A presence, waiting patiently, ready to pounce. "Saul, we need a plan." John gasped, sweat beading on his brow. "What do we do next?" Saul stared into the darkness beyond them, heart pounding. The night felt endless, and the question clawed at him: could he find the courage to face his past, or would it consume him whole? As the wind howled around them, Saul realized one undeniable truth: the real battle had just begun, and nothing would ever be the same. What awaited them in the twilight? At that moment, with the shadows shifting, he grasped the reality standing before him, a reckoning unlike anything he had faced before. The shadows danced in the moonlight, mocking Saul as he struggled to steady his breathing. Each inhale felt heavy, as if he were drawing in the weight of his past. They were on the brink, standing between the memories that haunted him and the uncertain future that lay in wait. "Saul, what do you see?" Miriam asked, her voice tinged with concern. She stood close, her brow furrowed, straining to read his expression in the dim light. He blinked, trying to shake the remnants of the figure's words from his mind. I don't know." The words clawed at him. Redemption was meant to feel like a gift, not a burden. But the figure's voice echoed relentlessly, taunting him in the recesses of his soul. John glanced around, paranoia setting in. "We can't just stand here. They'll find us." Before Saul could respond, a rustle came from behind them, like the whisper of wind through dry leaves. Cold dread gripped his heart. Was it the figure? Or something far worse lurking in the depths of the woods? "Back!" John hissed, pulling Miriam close. They huddled together, straining to hear the sounds of the forest, fear wrapping around them like a vice. "Listen," Saul said, glancing toward the incoming noise. It was too synchronized, too deliberate to be mere animals. Footsteps, soft yet echoing, approached. "Saul, do something." Miriam pressed, desperation in her voice. He clenched his fists, his skin prickling with urgency. "I can't keep running from this. I need to face whatever's out there. For all of us." The other two exchanged wide-eyed looks. In that moment, Saul felt his heartbeat synchronize with theirs, one collective defiance against their shared fear. "Let us stick together," Saul urged, more as a promise to himself than anything else. They formed a loose circle, anticipating whatever might spring from the shadows. The footsteps drew closer, accompanied by the rustle of branches. A figure emerged, tall, cloaked in a tattered robe, face obscured. Despite the familiar shapes appearing from the shadow, Saul couldn't shake the inkling of recognition gnawing at his consciousness. Saul, the figure spoke, voice rasped but oddly soothing. "You cannot escape who you are." Tension surged. John readied himself to push against the figure, while Miriam stepped involuntarily closer to Saul, seeking reassurance. "What do you want?" Saul demanded, the challenge simmering in his voice. "It is not about what I want," the figure murmured, stepping gingerly into the light. "It's about what you need to confront." A gasp escaped Miriam's lips. "Is that? Who are you?" Saul's tone grew fierce as he squinted against the brightness of the clearing, instinctive trust wrestling with fear. The figure threw back the hood, revealing a face that sent a jolt of recognition through Saul. It was someone he had thought long gone. Your past seeks you, Saul. It waits for the moment you stop running. Every person in the clearing caught their breath as memories surged forward like a tide. Saul felt a shiver run down his spine. What do you mean? His stomach twisted. I've left that life behind. The figure stepped forward, eyes piercing through the darkness, filled with an understanding he couldn't comprehend. But have you really? You cannot fight the shadows unless you understand their source. Panic ignited within him. What if this was true? Was the very essence of who he had become still shackled to the past he'd long tried to outrun? His voice wavered. What is the source? Tell me. The figure remained silent for a heartbeat before answering. You must look within. There is something you've yet to face, something you buried deeper than the rest. The tension thickened, a time bomb ticking in the silence. As Saul struggled to comprehend the implications of these words, a gust of wind whipped through the clearing, almost carrying away his resolve. And then, from the edge of the trees, another rustle. A growl rumbled through the night. A feral creature, eyes glinting like shards of glass, emerged from the unseen. Its intentions unmistakably hungry. Saul, run! John shouted, panic splintering the air. But this time, there would be no flight, not without facing what lay beneath. As the beast lunged, a realization dawned on Saul. Was he ready to confront not only the figure he thought was his enemy but the truth he had buried deep within himself? And in that moment, as shadows closed in, Saul knew one thing: his past had returned to collect its due. The creature burst from the darkness, its eyes reflecting a hunger that clawed at Saul's sanity. A guttural growl resonated deep in its throat, vibrating through the air like an ancient curse. Time stretched, each heartbeat echoing like thunder in Saul's ears, the world around him swirling into chaos. Stay close, he commanded, though his own voice barely registered against the tempest of fear surging within him. Miriam clung to his arm, her fingers trembling like leaves in a storm. John positioned himself between them and the creature, fists clenched, every muscle taut and ready. Are you crazy? John's eyes darted nervously. This isn't a fight we can win. Saul's resolve hardened. It doesn't matter. I can't keep running from whatever this is. His gaze shifted back to the figure, still looming like a specter in the night. Help us. What does this mean? The figure's face remained impassive, their eyes steady. Only you can face your darkness, Saul. You must choose. Battle the beast, or let it consume you. As if taunting him, the creature lunged forward, its claws swiping through the air with a speed that shattered Saul's focus. Instinctively, John pushed Miriam aside, the motion almost instinctual, allowing Saul to feel the weight of the choice pressing against his chest. Saul! Miriam cried out, but he was already moving, fear morphing into a desperate energy that coursed through him. He felt every second counting down, each one dragging him deeper into the abyss of decision that he stepped forward into the creature's path, arms raised, a shield fashioned from sheer will. No. You won't take them. His bark rippled through the air, surprising even himself. The creature snarled, a mix of ferocious outrage and primal hunger, halted mid-lunge. For a moment, the clearing hung suspended in silence, all eyes locked on the tableau unfolding before them. Face it. The figure commanded, voice unwavering. You are the master of your fear. The beast is a reflection of the darkness within. Saul met the beast's stare, feeling a gnawing dread like ice pouring into his veins. Recognition flowed through him like a fading echo from the past thrumming against the walls of his heart. The dark memories he tried so hard to bury, every failure, every regret flickered in his mind like images flashing on an old film reel. With his pulse racing, he realized that the true enemy wasn't the creature before him, but the pain he had imprisoned inside. It was time to confront it head-on. You won't destroy me. In a breathless instant, the beast shifted, its form rippling and morphing, revealing a flicker of something human beneath the monstrous exterior. Saul's heart raced at the realization. No way. His voice trailed off. Was this creature merely a manifestation of the guilt and sorrow he had buried? John's determination faltered. Saul, you can't let it win. But what if he surrendered? What would happen if he finally embraced the pain? Suddenly, the wind howled, a cacophony of whispers washing over him, fueling his spirit. He clenched his fists, not against the creature but against the weight of his own fears. I will not cower. I will face my darkness. With that declaration, his body surged forward, and as the beast lunged once more, he pushed past the terror. Saul plunged into the maw of despair, ready to reclaim what had been taken from him. Then, in the maelstrom of shadows, just as Saul thought he might find clarity, a sharp pain scythed through him, a strike from the beast severing the line between reality and nightmare. Saul! A scream, distant, floated in from the void. It was Miriam, her voice drowning in disquiet. The clearing sank into a whirlpool of madness, the figure watching silently, a harbinger of truth awaiting its moment. What awaited him in that darkness? Would he emerge transformed or be swallowed alive? He couldn't let it end here, and as everything went black, the question loomed over him: could he truly confront the monster within, or would he be lost amidst the chaos? Saul hurtled through a void, tumbling, spinning, swallowed by an endless night. Darkness pushed against him, absorbing every scream, every breath. It was a suffocating weight, closing in around him. Just when he thought he might lose all sense, a light flared in the distance. It was small, flickering, like a candle struggling to stay alive against a formidable gust. Panic ignited in his chest as he fought against the shadowy tendrils reaching for him. No. Stop. The word erupted from his lips, sounding foreign and desperate. He clawed toward the light, fueled by a raw instinct to survive. Each movement felt heavy, as if he were dragging a chain forged from all his past failures. But the light? It grew brighter, whispering promises of hope, clarity, and perhaps salvation. As he approached, Saul began to see forms emerging from the darkness, familiar faces. The jagged edges of memory cut through the fog of despair. They were his friends, his family, their expressions filled with sorrow and longing. Why are you here? He shouted, but his voice was swallowed by the overwhelming quiet. Saul! A voice pierced through, sharp and urgent. It was Miriam. We're losing you. Fight back. John's frantic tone beckoned him closer. Their images shimmered, flickering like fragile ghosts. The shadows tightened around him, pulling him backward, but Saul's will surged like a wildfire. I want to go back. He was done letting fear dictate his destiny. Suddenly, the beast's growl echoed around him, vibrating through his bones. He felt it lurking just beyond the light, the embodiment of every haunting thought and repressed memory. You think the light can save you? It taunted, husky and menacing. Embrace the darkness or be devoured by it. Saul's heart pounded, reckoning with the truth of the beast's words. Darkness had always loomed large in his life. It whispered doubt, fear, and regret, a relentless tide that threatened to pull him under. He remembered the lonely nights spent listening to that voice, a voice that echoed every flaw, every mistake. But now, he felt something shift within him. No. He had a choice. With a fierce shove of will, he thrust himself toward the light. The familiar faces seemed to shimmer closer, driven by his determination. Their hope melded with his. It was a lifeline. I know you. He bellowed, acknowledging the regrets and losses. I will not hide anymore. Lightning speared through the shadows as he declared this truth, illuminating what he had feared. The memories poured in, 2 faces of lost friends, the weight of broken promises, the stinging loss of love. But instead of drowning in them, he embraced the pain. Each memory was a portion of himself he now accepted. The creature roared with fury, its form shifting wildly, morphing into grotesque shapes that reflected all of Saul's insecurities. Yet, with every step toward the light, those shapes became less menacing, more like pieces of a jigsaw, finally falling into place. The transparency of their threat faded as he found his footing. "You can't scare me anymore." Saul stood tall, summoning a surge of energy he didn't know existed. The beast shrank before him, its roars fading into pained howls as Saul's light enveloped the clearing. The entity that had once seemed all-powerful was now nothing more than a shadow, whispering threats that lost their sting in the face of his resolve. Just then, a crack split the air. The figure from before stepped forward into sight, their expression unreadable. "You have chosen, but the battle is not done. Shadows do not disappear easily." Saul's breath caught in his throat, the weight of implications heavier than he imagined. The fight was far from over. An unsettling chill swept through the clearing. "What do you mean?" He felt the pull of unease, the dread returning. "Darkness will always lurk," the figure warned, "waiting for the moment you let your guard down." As a new wave of shadows rolled in, enveloping the clearing, Saul's heart raced once more. He had faced the beast, but now, was he truly prepared for the darkness that never truly left? What haunting echoes of the past would rise next? Would the light be enough to vanquish his doubts, or were the shadows merely biding their time to strike again? Saul's heart thundered in his chest as the new wave of shadows rolled forward, a palpable sense of dread creeping in. His pulse quickened, racing with every dark tendril that snaked toward him, almost alive, yearning to reclaim him into the depths from which he had fought so hard to escape. "This isn't over," he shouted defiantly. The words echoed, spraying courage like a burst of flame in the chill darkness. The figure that had emerged watched him closely, their expression still inscrutable, as if they were gauging the strength of his resolve. "Saul," the figure spoke, voice low, almost a whisper. "You're not just battling shadows, these are manifestations of your deepest fears. You must confront them, they will not retreat willingly." "But how?" Saul stammered, his bravado faltering under the weight of the figure's words. The promise of light was washing away, threatened by the menacing darkness that lingered, waiting, hungry for the slightest chink in his armor. "Dig deep," the figure instructed, stepping closer. "Use your wounds as weapons. Accept what has been, and allow it to empower you." The shadows writhed in response, curving and shifting, forming faces that he recognized, the shattered remnants of his past. Friends lost to time, moments stained by regret. "Stop!" Saul yelled, slamming his hands against his temples as memories blasted into his mind, laughter that faded, the warmth of embrace that turned into empty space. "I don't want to see this." But the memories surged, relentless like a raging river. He stumbled, overcome by the violent tide of sorrow, faces of those who had trusted him tangled in his mind. "You failed us," Saul, a voice rang out, mocking, clear as a bell. "No. I tried, I fought." He gritted his teeth, desperation wrapping around him like a noose. "I'm not that person anymore." The shadows flickered, as if weighing his words, transforming with each confession. The laughter of his youth twisted into mournful cries, chained to the shadows. Each face held a question that cut deep. What would he do now? "Face it," the figure encouraged. "Let the pain in. Only then can you transform it." Taking a shaky breath, Saul steadied himself, grasping for courage amid the turmoil. "I acknowledge that I've hurt others, that I've hurt myself," he whispered, fighting against the swell of emotion. "But I refuse to live in that pain." As he voiced those truths, a blinding light erupted from his heart, pushing against the darkness with intensity. The shadows shrieked as the light spread, illuminating the painful faces back into their warm smiles. "Now you're getting it." The figure cheered, their voice boosted by the dawning light. "Use your strength, Saul. Don't back down." With each subsequent acknowledgement, each recognition of pain and sorrow, the shadows shrank bit by bit. He pulled strength from his vulnerability, the once maddening memories becoming a soothing balm to his mindset. "I forgive myself," he shouted, each word a definitive blow against the tempest swirling around him. The darkness hissed violently, writhing in anguish, yet Saul stood firm, resolute. Those shadows were nothing without their power to hold him captive. He had wrested that away. With one final push of his will, he raised his hands high, the light expanding exponentially around him. I will not be your prey any longer. The shadows burst apart with a final scream, fizzling into nothing but wispy tendrils of smoke that dissolved into the ether. Saul felt lighter, unburdened by the weight of the past. But that relief was ephemeral. The clearing was still, unsettlingly quiet. Saul's breath quickened. What now? The figure remained, their gaze piercing through the settling haze. You've only just begun. The true darkness is still waiting for you to test you, to tempt you. This was only the first confrontation. A chilling wave coursed through him, realization dawning this wasn't the end. As shadows danced on the edges of his awareness, he understood that his journey was far from over. What deeper fears awaited him? How would he confront them when they returned, fiercer and more cunning than before? The battle was only just heating up, and Saul wasn't sure if he was ready for what loomed ahead. The eerily quiet space around Saul felt heavy with anticipation, a thick fog wrapping around him. He could still feel the residual warmth of light coursing through his veins, but the shadows were lurking, biding their time. Every moment stretched, fraying the edges of his resolve. What do you mean, true darkness? Saul asked cautiously, his voice barely a whisper as if afraid that speaking aloud would summon the shadows back. They were out there, waiting, ready to pounce. Every person carries burdens that weigh down their spirit, the figure warned, their voice a soft gust amidst the stillness. You've faced some fears, but what lies buried beneath them? Saul clenched his fists. He wasn't backing down. What lies beneath is my past, my mistakes. I've faced it. I've fought. But have you truly accepted it? They stepped forward, shadows swirling at their feet. The darkness is clever. It will find a way to exploit your vulnerabilities and drag you back, just when you think you're safe. Cold dread seeped into Saul's bones. He wasn't ready for this revelation. I need to prepare. I need to know what I'm up against. You must connect with the darkness, came the figure's chilling response. It's not only external. The darkest threats often rise from within. Saul squeezed his eyes shut. Memories began to flicker like a broken film reel, the friend he betrayed, the love he lost, faces etched in his mind, whispering accusations that tore at his resolve. No, not this again. Accept it, the figure commanded gently, yet firmly. That truth is not meant to imprison you, it's meant to free you. You must let the shadows draw close. With every heartbeat, pain swelled in Saul's chest. The notion of inviting that anguish back felt unbearable, yet deep down, he knew there was no other way. He had to shine light on the darkest corners of his soul. Swallowing hard, he forced himself to think of the loved ones he had let down. You're right, he finally said, voice trembling. I need to face what I've done. I can't run. Not again. As if his confession broke an unseen dam, the darkness surged forward. Shadows slithered around his feet, darting toward him with sharp claws, and he could feel the chill biting at his skin. Thoughts clawed at his mind, clawing deeper into his psyche. You thought you could ignore us? Shrieked a voice, echoed by the faces of those he couldn't save. No. I won't be trapped. He cried, hands shaking as he fought for control. I am not defined by my past mistakes. Yet the shadows laughed, cruel and mocking. You can't escape your truth. You belong to us. For a heartbeat, panic gripped him. What if they were right? What if he was just a failure, doomed to relive his mistakes in this dark abyss? In that moment of despair, he remembered the light he had summoned before. He focused, conscious of the warmth that still lingered within. I acknowledge my wrongs, he declared, forcing the words over the lump in his throat. But I will not be a prisoner anymore. I will turn my pain into power. Suddenly, bright threads of light erupted from his chest again, pushing back against the dark tendrils trying to ensnare him. The shadows recoiled, hissing with rage, but they were no match for his defiance this time. With renewed vigor, Saul pushed against the darkness, illuminating every hidden corner of his heart. "I'm not afraid anymore," he shouted, allowing his pain to fuel the brightness, but just when the shadows seemed to retreat, the figure raised an arm, eyes wide with warning. "Saul, wait. There's more. You've ignited one layer, the next will come harder." The ground trembled beneath him, and Saul braced himself, knowing he wasn't prepared for what lay ahead. "What do you mean? What now?" A sinister laughter echoed through the darkness, as tremors rippled through the floor. It sent chills racing up Saul's spine. He had stirred something far greater than he anticipated. As shadows swirled with increased intensity, Saul staggered back, uncertainty flooding his mind. Could he truly combat this deeper darkness creeping in? What monstrous truths lay ahead? Hidden in the shadows? Would he stand tall against whatever emerged? As the darkness churned ominously, Saul stood at the brink of an unknown terror, ready or not. The darkness swirled around Saul, twisting and writhing like a living entity, hungry for his fear. Shadows danced and shifted, teasing memories that sent chills down his spine. They were the faces of every person he had hurt and the echo of choices that haunted him. "What are you waiting for, Saul?" A voice hissed from the depths, dripping with malice. "Are you ready to face the real monster?" With each heartbeat, he could feel the weight of doubt pressing down, but he clenched his jaw. There was no turning back. He inhaled deeply, drawing courage from the flickering light within. "I want to be defined by my past." The intensity of his voice surprised him, forging strength from the fractures of his history. The shadows recoiled, momentarily caught off guard by his declaration. "You think mere words can banish us?" They whispered, laughter echoing, a cacophony of malice. "Words without action are nothing." Each taunt hit him hard, but he mustered the fire within. "You're wrong. Every scar, every regret, has led me to this moment. I embrace my past." In that defiant moment, he visualized the faces he had wronged, the friends he had betrayed, the families torn apart by his actions. Instead of pain, warmth began to spread in his chest, illuminating the darkness threatening to suffocate him. Memories flashed brightly. The laughter shared, love given, moments where he had touched lives. "See." The shadows spat, the teasing laughter tinged with bitterness. "You're the same Saul. You'll always be the persecutor." But as their words rolled over him, new resolve surged. "Not anymore," he shouted, voice echoing with conviction. "I will turn my pain into purpose." The shadows writhed, recoiling like snakes beneath the hot flame of his declaration. His heart pulsed, loud and unyielding, and the light within him grew stronger, brighter. The figure watched, expression inscrutable as Saul took a step forward, understanding dawning. "These feelings, these fears and regrets, they're not my chains. They are steps to my freedom." Every word was a blow against the darkness, sending shockwaves through the air. "Then we'll destroy you," the shadows roared, lunging toward him, but Saul stood firm. He raised his arms, willing every ounce of light he had in him to burst forth. "You are not my end." Just like that, a radiant surge erupted, unstoppable, flooding the clearing with brilliant light. The shadows shivered and howled, squirming against the relentless brightness. With each hum of his spirit, they began to dissolve, writhing until they were nothing but whispers in the wind. As silence fell heavy around him, Saul blinked, panting from the effort. He was exhausted but triumphant. And then, the figure stepped forward, an approving nod gracing their lips. "You've conquered much, Saul. But be wary. The true tests of light and dark are relentless. They never cease." Saul felt a strange mix of awe and fear, but he released his breath, accepting the truth with clarity. "I am not afraid of the shadows. They are part of me, but they do not define me." A deep rumble echoed in the distance, like a promise of new challenges. The figure's face softened into an encouraging smile. Then trust in your strength. Trust in the road ahead. You've only begun to walk the path of your true purpose. With renewed vigor, Saul faced the horizon, where a glimmer of dawn broke through the remnants of night. He was ready to embrace his future, ready to lead, heal, and fight for the faith he once hunted. As the light began to rise, bathing the clearing in warmth, it filled him with hope and an understanding of who he could truly become. He stepped forward, not just as Saul the persecutor but as Paul the apostle, a beacon of light forged from the fires of darkness, and with that realization, the journey was just beginning. Hey, before you dash off, there's something really important. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss out on the next epic story. Smash that like button now to help fuel the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about Saul's journey. What did you think about the twists? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this conclusion. Your support means everything, and together, we'll dive deeper into the stories that matter.